Good evening, everybody. We are the Jedi in Exile. We are It's Tats and the Norfolk Lion. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Right, the first thing we need to talk about on this podcast, it's Tat's birthday today. So happy birthday, Matt.
Thank you. Appreciate
You
it, mate.
don't look a day over 55.
Oh, hey. Well, that's good because I'm a lot older than that, so we'll keep that on quiet.
The other exciting thing, though, which is so exciting, is we had a new episode of the Book of Boba Fett. That's obviously why we're here. Um, I feel like it shouldn't have been an episode of the Book of Boba Fett, but it was extremely exciting because we got Mando back. So, episode five now, so we're really into the kind of heart and soul of the series. Now, we knew that Mando was teased in last week's episode. We've got a show on YouTube you can go back and watch, reviewing season four, when Finnick and Boba Fett are talking about we can hire muscle, the Mandalorian theme plays along. So we kind of knew that he was coming. The talk of Twitter and socials was that it's going to be the Mandalorian. He's going to make an appearance. Well, it's not just an appearance; it's a whole fucking episode.
Yeah,
Like,
so let's
so,
let's let's
and
address
it was a really long one as well, 51 minutes. So talk to me, Matt, from your point of view about what stood out for you.
let's address the elephant in the room. So this is not a Book of Boba Fett episode. This is a
It's still fucking quality, but
yeah, like yeah.
it's a
But
teaser. It's like a prologue to
I
Mando season three.
I've still got a theory that somebody back at Disney Plus HQ has definitely named the file wrong, and what we're gonna get in the middle of Mando season 3 is just an entire episode about Boba Fett.
Dave Filoni's sitting down at like 9 o'clock this morning, and it comes on, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
He's just going. He's just going. He's
He's
done.
going,
Steve's
"I'm
done it again.
waiting,
Steve's
I'm
done it
waiting."
again. He's done it again. Like, come on. Um,
What? This is the first thing. Sorry, that I wanted to just quickly interrupt. This makes me wonder where season three of Mandalorian is going to start.
well,
Like that just froze for me. Like I assumed it was going to start with like maybe him taking Moff Gideon to the New Republic. Or, I honestly don't know now.
so
Like,
we
depends
also
how much Mando's going to be in Book of Boba Fett now.
and we also still don't know because
Yeah.
we might get a pre his appearance in Book of Boba Fett couple of episodes, and then we might get a time jump within Mando season 3 to then follow on because it's already been explained here, so they don't need to explain it in their show.
Couldn't do because yeah, that would kind of be difficult to do for me because they've done it so much on this
Oh,
series of
not
Book of Boba
necessarily as
Fett,
a
the whole
not necessarily as a
timeline.
flashback, just like they do the episodes like you don't know when they are, and then it jumps. But who knows? Genuinely, who knows?
It's kind of exciting in one way that they've merged the series because I didn't expect that. Obviously, Boba Fett was on season two of The Mandalorian. I was not expecting anything Mando in this series, so
No,
that's exciting.
I,
So
I mean, let's be honest, right? The episode was called "The Return of the Mandalorian," and the Return of the Mandalorian, it was
they
essentially
got the title right.
a full episode of Din running around doing his thing, kind of, and we saw various stuff. We're gonna go over some of the cool bits. We're gonna go over some of the things
Forgot,
that we really
I
enjoyed.
forgot how fucking suave he looks
Oh,
in
honestly,
their armor that they're
honestly,
mixing.
the whole like pure chrome, like
Yeah,
nobody's touching me. This stuff is mint.
he looks cooler than Boba Fett.
Yeah, he does. He does.
I
Like we're probably gonna cop some hate for saying that, but he does.
yeah,
I just want to say massive props to Bryce Dallas Howard because this has by far been the best episode of the series. I would probably say one of the best episodes of this kind of, if you want to lump Book of Boba Fett in with The Mandalorian as well. Thought this was a super strong episode.
yeah.
So I guess for me, couple of little bits and pieces that I want to maybe call out. So took some notes. Don't ever accuse me of not being prepared when we do these talks. Took some notes.
Come prepared.
Exactly. For those that haven't seen Hoodwinked, go watch it. So I loved the throwback. So Mando is going
So much
after.
throwback in this episode.
Well, Mando's going after Kobo Baez, I think his name is. The guy at the very start that he's got the bounty on, and he breaks out the line that we saw multiple times in particularly in season 1 of Mando, which is, "I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold." And honestly, when I heard it, I was just like, "This is amazing. This is amazing." Like, nothing has changed. I felt like I was transported back to watching The Mandalorian on binge, like just in that mindset. It's absolutely incredible.
It reminds me of like I've worked for somebody, and you always knew you were in more trouble when they like lowered their
Oh
voice
yeah,
and made it
it's the teacher
sinister.
thing, right? You're
It,
not scared
it
of a
is,
teacher when a
yeah.
teacher's shouting, but when a
No,
teacher
no.
is
It's
quietly talking to you,
not
you are.
shouting. Yeah, it's like I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. What would you like me to choose, Matthew?
Yep. Exactly. We honestly, so that for me was just
The line is just
chef's.
iconic now. The
It
line
was
is like that Mando
it
line.
was chef's kiss. It was maybe what like 45 seconds into the episode, and they've gone boom. We dropped that bomb already. Um, at this point, I'm going. This is amazing. Then, because we don't know when this is set, particularly with the precedent being set throughout this entire series with flashbacks and stuff, what do we see? Boom, Dark Saber. Dark Saber
So,
gets dropped. So straight in with the Dark Saber, absolutely incredible. We get to see Din using it properly as well.
yeah, do you want to know what I liked about that though? Was that you can clearly tell what annoys me, like what annoyed me about Finn, picks up a lightsaber and he's really good with some moves. Now, granted, Finn's had stormtrooper training and Din Djarin clearly is a good fighter, but Din it didn't look the polished article that a Jedi would be, considering a Jedi puts years of practice every single day. They're practicing lightsaber techniques. So I liked that he was actually quite clumsy with it as well.
Yeah,
I
like
thought that was really worked out well.
we get the bit where he like clips himself with it, don't we? Like
It was,
and
yeah, it was yeah.
a big thing's made throughout the episode about like how he's struggling to use it.
Yeah,
So for me, seeing the Dark Saber was just like
yeah,
it was mental when we saw it with Moff Gideon at the end of Mando season 1. Then it became kind of quite a big thing towards the end of Mando season 2.
yeah. Well, I feel like the reason we'd never seen it in live action before. That's the difference. We'd seen the Dark Saber in Clone Wars and in Rebels. So the animated shows set between Clone Wars is set between 2 and 3, as we know, and Rebels is set between 3 and 4. So we've seen the Dark Saber um, with a couple of characters, but we didn't really. It wasn't something we thought, oh, that's going to come into live action. So when Moff Gideon brings it out, I mean, it's just fucking incredible.
And so it's touched on in the episode, but kind of not wanting to repeat exactly what they've kind of said. So we've seen the Dark Saber before. You've mentioned predominantly in Clone Wars, right? So
Yeah.
we see it with Pre Vizsla in Clone Wars, and Vizsla is an important name, so you guys just kind of bear that in mind for a second. So we see Pre Vizsla use it in Clone Wars. I believe Maul like takes it off him, and we're probably going to do an episode on the Dark Saber and the history of the Dark Saber at some point
Huge
soon.
history and so many facts to the dark saber. We wouldn't be doing it justice by doing too much talking tonight on it.
But kind of
It's a
brief,
big fucking deal.
yeah, like brief thing is it's been around for ages. It's this massive status symbol within Mandalorian culture. It was introduced by the first and only Mandalorian Jedi, Tar Vizsla. Again, this is from I believe this is from Rebels that they talk about this, and this is where it all kind of comes in. So to kind of see all of that, and again, this is we've talked about this so many times, but this is what I love, is that Dave Filoni has got this plan. He's gone. We've got this item. Let's talk about it in Clone Wars. Let's introduce it in Clone Wars. Oh, what's that? We're doing another animated series. Let's bring it back in. And then they've gone, oh, live action. Boom, done. We're bringing it in here as well. And not just as a oh, this is cool, let's like flash to it at some point because it's like in a museum somewhere. It's actually like a fundamental part of the storyline, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, and what I like as well is that there's kind of like, so we see it in Clone Wars, then there's probably, you'd probably say something like a 10-year gap, maybe even more, maybe 15 years between then seeing it in Clone Wars and Rebels. Could even be up to 20 years, Wars it is.
No,
Um,
definitely.
I think it could be around 20 years. And then you've got kind of another 10-year jump to then the Mando. So there's a lot of space in between for, and I feel like we're going to find out more and more about the Dark Saber.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, let's just talk about kind of the one of the cool things that's been brought in here is every time we've seen someone use it, we've seen people that are trained in combat using it. We've seen Force users using it. The closest that we get to somebody who is a complete novice before we talk about Din is we see Sabine Wren use it in Rebels, and Kanan takes the time to actually train her how to use it, and he talks about the fact that and I think this is something that people forget when they think about lightsabers. So the blade is pure energy. So when you talk about a sword and you talk about the balance point of a sword, let's take my pen for example for those that are watching. There is a balance point somewhere in the middle here because there is weight either end, right? So if I'm swinging this about, I know that I only have to put a small amount of effort into doing this because the weight pulls it round. When you're talking about a lightsaber, all of the weight is in the handle because the blade is pure energy, and it's the same with the dark saber. So that in itself is like difficult to get your head round. So we've seen Sabine struggle with it, but everybody else seemed to kind of be okay with it. We've seen Din struggle, but then we've had this new concept introduced, which is the fact that it's heavy, and that the longer you use it and the less comfortable you are with wielding it, the heavier it becomes.
It's almost like you'd need to be a Force user to wield it, which there won't have been any Force users, like you say, really, and before Tar Vizsla, who made it. Like, obviously, he was the Mandalorian Jedi, and it seems like, and we've never had this referenced before, like ever, that a lightsaber is heavy. So the dark saber, it must have been made differently um, to have that feature.
And obviously, those that have watched Mandalorian and Clone Wars and Rebels, because it's talked about in all of them, they understand the whole kind of premise of you have to win it in combat. It's touched on very briefly in this episode, and we actually get to see that happen with the whole Paz Vizsla, and there's the name again, direct descendant of Pri and Tar, try and challenge Din for it, which is again awesome to kind of see these rituals, and we're learning more about we kind of get the flashback of the purge on Mandalore, which I'm really hoping
Yeah,
that we get to
it's
explore a bit more.
awesome. Yeah, and
um,
also as well the fact that he then just gets thrown out um, by the two
there's three of
other
them. There's three
Mandalorians.
of them. They're
Yeah,
like, we've got no
instead of
numbers,
being
and
like,
they don't hesitate. They're like, get out, you've broken the code.
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like, there's only three of them. They want to like basically take back their home world or like start a new clan, etc. And they're like, "You removed your helmet. Fuck off."
Okay, so
Like, my face got sweaty. I needed to wipe it.
exactly, I wanted to eat something.
Yeah,
um while we're talking about returns, we need to talk about a huge character returning. And I believe that I talked about it in one of our previous episodes because
indeed you did. And I did
she
think about this when I watched the episode. I
she
was like,
was
oh,
potentially spotted in the background.
yeah, yeah,
Big
yeah.
Pelimoto. Pelimoto is
Yeah.
back.
She renamed Perm Moto.
Oh, Perm Moto. Uh, so
She's rocking a 70s perm.
Pelimoto back from Mando. So the mechanic who surrounds herself with droids back. We get to see them working on a great project, which we're gonna touch on in a second, which is also another callback, another throwback, and we love to see. But we get to see Pelimoto back, and it's really nice again to see the kind of the relationship between these two. I think.
Yeah. And the fact that it's not all serious.
Yeah, I think
Like, I feel like most of prequel Jedi. the prequel Star Wars films were all serious. The only bit of kind of like a jokey character, from what I'm just off the top of my head, is Jar Jar, and he was a
Yeah,
fucking joke.
yeah, it was way too
Right?
far, right? It was the
Yeah, it
complete
went
extreme,
too
and it
much
wasn't.
the other way.
Yeah,
And the sequel trilogy kind of got it right with a couple with main characters being serious, but also having like quick like one-liner quips at each other. But yeah, they've really nailed it on these series, the Mando and the Book of Boba Fett. Some of the characters they've introduced.
it's the balance, isn't it? Like it's getting the balance right, and I think I kind of get the impression that she's going to appear like she could be somebody who this
She's a
for
bit more
me
loyal
is.
than I think she comes across.
Yeah, but this for me as a character. So there's a what we need to understand is as an audience, there is a difference between cameos and
Mm.
and and important characters appearing for a short space of time, but actually providing something to the story. And I think she sits in this particular episode. It's not a
You can take it
cameo.
either way.
It's not a
Yeah, yeah,
cameo
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
she's providing something pivotal to the story. But I feel
Yeah,
like this is definitely a character that we are gonna see cameos from
yeah.
in more like medium that comes
That's the
out.
thing with that. You can have a cameos and then you can turn them into a character that is there for a short space of time that is important.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if Boba Fett maybe needs help, he goes to her now.
yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah,
that's what we want to see as an audience is not just let's pull this character in and give them 30 seconds on the screen so that everyone goes, hey, she's back. Like
yeah.
bring them back for a reason and actually make it kind of make sense.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
So we've talked about Pelimoto. We've talked about the fact that she surrounds herself with droids.
Yeah,
We could not talk about this episode without talking about something that is pivotal, and I'll explain why in a second. We got the appearance of a certain type of droid. So we got a BD series droid. And for those that have not played the Jedi Fallen Order game, BD droid is the companion that Cal has throughout the series. So this is now starting to pull kind of not just from the animated series, not just from the pre-existing movies, but we're now getting little tidbits of the whole universe. Exactly. I love how we did that in unison. The
yeah,
whole universe and bringing in these other mediums. So obviously we've seen Black Chrysanthemum in from the comic books. We're now seeing this pulled in from the video games, and it comes at a really kind of a really opportune time as well because
yeah.
um,
Oh,
they've just announced the sequel to Fallen Order. So I was going to say Fallen Order 2. We'll probably reference it as Fallen Order 2 until it gets a proper name, but I think they're calling it the Star Wars Jedi series rather than Fallen Order
yeah.
series. But
So that gives them a bit more license if they want to get away from Cal as a character, they can do.
yeah, definitely, and we'll cover that when there's more news to cover. But it's a really opportune moment because people will see this and they'll go, "Oh, that seems familiar. What was that from? Oh, I'll go back and play Fallen Order." Like, all of that kind of stuff, and I think that's really clever from Disney.
Yeah, and I like that they've done things like taking stuff from the comics and games and stuff because it intrigues me with the Kenobi series coming up that the fact that are we going to see, we just assumed that it would be all about Obi-Wan and something must happen. And then, of course, we heard that Hayden Christensen is in it. And so we think that there's going to be a lot more going to Vader, maybe. And so, will they look at the Vader comics and all the stuff that's come up? Because there, until the last few years, we haven't actually had a lot about Vader himself. We've not had really any kind of, in any medium,
No, well,
in book,
a,
in anything. And
a,
that's something that actually could come to life.
a lot of the comics, the Vader comics, have become quite a big thing within maybe the past 5 years. It's definitely been something that's been started to explore. So that's quite recent in the terms of A New Hope came out in '77, so it's fairly recent. But I think for me, what this does, and we'll touch on the Kenobi series briefly and why I'm now even more excited for it, is we were talking about kind of how is it going to work, and we did a video on kind of some preliminary thoughts on the Kenobi series. Again, that's on the YouTube channel if you guys want to see it. And when we were talking, we were kind of like, how's it going to work? Hayden Christensen's been announced. How is that going to work? Are they going to do a big Obi-Wan, Anakin, like, or Vader fight? Are we going to see all of this kind of stuff? For all we know, they've now set a precedent. This show is called The Book of Boba Fett. Who didn't feature in this entire episode? Boba Fett. How do we know that we're not going to get the series called Kenobi, but actually it's things that are happening in that time frame that affect him, but aren't necessarily about him?
And I think the thing I'm more intrigued with Kenobi is there's two lines in A New Hope, and obviously they didn't foreshadow this. They didn't know this how big Star Wars was going to get, and there was going to be a series like 50 years later called Kenobi. But there's two lines in A New Hope. Vader is near the Millennium Falcon, and Han and Luke, they're in the smuggler's hold bit. And Darth Vader says, I feel a presence, one I've not felt since. Well, that's quite, that could have been a year before, could have been 2 years, could have been the 20 years before fighting Obi-Wan. And the second line, Vader obviously says to Ben Kenobi at the time, he says, when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Now again, you would assume that that's going to reference quite a while before. So in my mind, and this is completely off topic of Book of Boba Fett, but will there be a Kenobi Vader showdown? And where it can't happen on Tatooine, because we know that Vader won't go back to Tatooine because he still has those Anakin Skywalker-ish thoughts.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like going onto Tatooine. They'll have to fight somewhere else because then he won't know where Obi-Wan is, where he's hiding. But will they fight? It's just like a big, will they, won't they? And obviously, like you say, there seems like there's going to be a lot of focus on Vader. There's already been some artwork released of Vader at his castle on Mustafar, which again is iconic because that's where, the downfall of Anakin Skywalker happened. So it's all so fucking exciting.
But this is what I'm saying. This episode, not only it was an amazing spectacle to watch, it opens so many doors for what they can do in the franchise now.
It's such a precedent.
So before we get too far off topic, we were
so excited about Kenobi.
we were on the topic of like throwbacks and kind of callbacks and all of that kind of stuff. So we've had a few callbacks to the previous series, we've had a few callbacks to the animated series and the games and stuff. Here is one for all the prequel fans out there, and none of you, like, if you're a prequels fan, you're not gonna have missed it. It was thrown in your face. Boom. The N1 Naboo starfighter, unreal.
Very good at spinning.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So this bad boy,
it's coming out of the hold.
This bad boy,
it's blowing up from the inside.
This bad boy made a return. I've been on Twitter since watching the episode, and prequels fans are losing their minds at the fact that this bad boy was brought back. Which obviously in this timeline, it's a relic, right? Like it's like the equivalent of having a classic car.
That's like a 40 or 50-year-old shit. Like, I love the Phantom Menace throwback because the Phantom Menace, you take Jar Jar out, and that's a good film.
Well, and this is the thing, right? How many times have we actually seen throwbacks to the Phantom Menace?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Again, because it's just been constantly panned.
Yeah. So this is them saying, we can push past that. We can take the stuff that people liked from these movies and pull it into the new era. Have loved this. I love that they did this.
We've got to have Watto back in somewhere.
I would love to see Watto. I'd love to see Watto come back.
In New Republic credits, they mean nothing.
I'm a Toydarian.
Yeah.
But
don't work on me.
But honestly, loved this. I think it's really interesting as well that to kind of talk about the relationship between Peli and Din. That she's managed to convince a guy who was like, I want a Razor Crest, I want a Razor Crest, I want a Razor Crest. And the reason that he wants a Razor Crest is, okay, he loved his old ship, but also, like, it's a big, like, freighter. It's like similar sort of thing to the Millennium Falcon. You know, it's a multi passenger with sleeping quarters and all of that kind of stuff.
The thing in the first series, the first episode of The Mandalorian, he's got like 5 people frozen in carbonite. Like,
Exactly.
there there is not boot space for that in
Nah,
this
get a
Naboo
roof rack.
starfight.
Get a roof rack, mate.
Yeah.
Roof rack or a
Or a
trailer.
power line
Or a,
between the
yeah,
two.
roof rack or a trailer. But honestly, like to then see him, and I wonder if this is going to be now start to generate the kind of like the piloting skills, because I feel like it was really difficult. We saw some piloting like skills scenes in The Mandalorian where he was like trying to outmaneuver people and stuff, and it was always, oh, it's a big bulky ship like trying to do all of this stuff, and we got essentially a spiritual throwback to the Naboo pod race from Phantom Menace when he took this bad boy for a test drive. So, for those that didn't pick up on the reference, he actually goes out where the Bunta Eve like pod race was taking place, goes out into the desert, and from this we then get another reference, and this one is one for all you hardcorers out there. So he gets told by Pelly to take it for a run through Beggar's Canyon. And there is a line from, I think it's from A New Hope, where Luke says, I used to bullseye Womp Rats in my T-16 in Beggar's Canyon. So we've basically been taken back to, and this is kind of another parallel, right? Luke learned his kind of flying abilities, but at flying and shooting abilities, he like honed them in Beggar's Canyon. This is Mando flying like a starship rather than a speeder starship rather than a cruiser, and learning to do it in Beggar's Canyon.
Yeah, no, the line is because I was thinking the line you're thinking of is, and I've just Googled it to make sure I was right. The line you're thinking of is I used to bullseye Womprats in my T-16 back home. The quote
Yeah.
is when he meets his friend Biggs
Oh
and
yeah.
he says it'll be just like Beggar's Canyon
There we
back
go.
home
There we go. So
when they're gonna attack the Death Star, and
in
that
the
must
trench
mean
run, in the
obviously
trench run.
in the trench run because that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It'll be just like
Yeah,
Beggar's
you're
Canyon
right.
back home,
You're right.
which is fucking incredible that
On,
there's a throwback to the film in 1977 and they've taken one line and they're like, you know what, fuck it, put it in.
but and I'm gonna get bored of saying it on this, but Filoni's a fan. Like Filoni
Oh,
is a
dude,
massive
honestly,
fanboy.
he's like the biggest super fan.
He's such a
He's
fanboy, and you know that this was a Filoni.
going through scripts.
This was Filoni just going, oh, we'll have a look through. So John Favreau's written the script. Let's have a flick through. Let's have a flick through. Let's have a flick through. And he's gone,
Why is there no reference to
and
the
and he's gone.
1977?
He's gone. This is the perfect time. I've been wanting to throw a beggars canyon reference in. Now is the time, John. Like, unreal. I cannot believe how hyped I felt after this episode. It okay. Let's get over the
As a
fact that Boba.
standalone episode, it was fucking.
It was incredible. It was incredible. Let's get over the fact that Boba wasn't in it. Let's get over the fact that it was all about Mando until the very end. And let's just appreciate it for what it was, which is, as a standalone story, like you said, awesome. It's got everybody hyped. Bearing in mind we're coming into the back end now of Book of Boba Fett, there are going to be so many people going, give us a Mando Season 3 release date. Give us a Mando Season 3 release date. Like, people will want to be on this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's going to be interesting, like when we actually focus back on the Book of Boba Fett, with obviously what's happened so far, and as much as this was a great episode, I'm thinking of like the story going forward with Boba Fett. Is that we talk about hiring muscle? Is the Mando going to cause? Is he going to be in a huge fight with the Pikes? I still feel like the Hutts are going to have something to do with this. Those twins. I, I my gut feeling says we haven't seen the end of those. I could be completely wrong, but it'll just be interesting to see how Mando now fits into the storyline. Whether he's like it's just one more episode, and then they leave him until season 3 of The Mandalorian, and that's it. It's like a cameo, or whether he now continues to the end of the Boba Fett series as basically like a glorified bodyguard because he hasn't really got a great ship. He now obviously has, but it's still you still get the feeling it needs some modification. Um, is there going to be any other bounties he wants to collect? Like, how long does Boba need him for? What does Boba need him to do? I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions as to is Mando now going to basically be in the rest of this series?
Yeah, and do you know what? I would love to sit here and tell you that I've got all the answers, but actually, I'm just excited to find out. I don't
Yeah, and I
even.
don't even care. I don't even care if they throw him off the planet within the first 5 minutes of the next episode. This episode was fucking class,
Yeah, it
and it was
was.
good. Another character that everybody loves.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, and I think that's a perfect summary. And I think that brings us perfectly to a good point for us to finish it on.
As a standalone episode, it's 10. I know we don't do this, but I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 9 only because Boba Fett wasn't in it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine, and I appreciate that. I totally get where you're coming from. I'm not going to argue massively, but it was an amazing episode, and an incredible bit of cinematography. Bryce Dallas Howard, like, take a bow,
Yeah, yeah,
incredible.
really great job.
John Favreau, incredible script. Dave Filoni, you're just a god anyway. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Um,
And on the seventh day, God said, "Let there be Filoni."
exactly. Let there be Star Wars. Other than that, all that's left to do is the usual. Thank you, everybody, if you've stuck it out to the end here. Thank you for all the support, as usual. All the socials have been popping up as per our personal ones. The Beacons page with all of the links for the kind of the stuff from us, like from the podcast, the Jedi, all the Jedi and Exile stuff, is all in the description down below. We'll be back. We'll be posting another video out later in the week, and then we'll be back next week to talk about the next episode. Honestly, cannot wait. I hope it's as mind-blowing as this week's has been. Brian, any final comments from yourself?
No, just you could tell my excitement at the start of the episode. It was all we ever wanted and more. And yeah, just so excited for any Star Wars project that Dave Filoni is remotely involved with. He could have been on set for one day drinking a Starbucks latte constantly. I would trust that it's going to be a good series. And, it, episodes like this make me. And that it hasn't really even advanced the story of the Book of Boba Fett that much. Like, the story of Book of Boba Fett has gone nowhere. Episodes like this, how excited I feel, make me like I cannot wait for the other series that come. Kenobi, for the Mandalorian season 3, for the series 2 of the Bad Batch, for the Andor series, like all these other series that are coming out. It makes me so excited for what Disney have got.
Couldn't have said it better, mate. Couldn't have said it better. I'll be honest.
So, thank you everybody for watching. Double down on everything that Matt said. Follow the socials, get on YouTube, see some other videos. And of course, may the Force be with you all. Take it easy, everybody.